Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Wake and Take. It's your boy Jason, and we've got some football to talk about today. It's Friday. We're heading into the weekend. We've got games that happen, and we had a game last night, so we're going to be breaking down all things Week 9. We're going to go through some of the big news stories of the week. We're going to take a look at the practice reports. I'm going to give my top starts and sits by position. And then we're going to go game by game, making some fun little picks and predictions and stuff like that. So go ahead and take out your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, and welcome in, everyone. Good morning to you, Harry Snowman and Jamie. If you're listening on the podcast, thank you for listening as well. I hope you all had a wonderful Halloween evening, enjoying that spooky Jets-Texans game. Admittedly, didn't catch it all. In fact, didn't catch any of it. Was hanging out with some friends last night. But, man, apparently C.J. Stroud did an Anthony Richardson costume, and Aaron Rodgers decided to be peak Aaron Rodgers on Halloween evening. Malachi Corley, F in the chat. If you guys could, please put an F in the chat for Malachi Corley. I could not imagine about to cross the goal line on not only my first career catch, but what would be my first touchdown and just dropping that thing. I cannot imagine how that man feels this morning. That has to be gut-wrenching. At least they still pull off the win. I'm curious to see if they can keep it up. Some great storylines, of course. We get the Devontae Adams touchdown. Garrett Wilson goes off. Breece Hall still finds himself a low floor despite not having as many opportunities as we want him to. So it's good to see that with the pass game clicking in the way it did. So the Jets, maybe they can use this going forward. And the Texans, man, do they need some wide receiver help. I mean, obviously, no one could ever expect their top two wide receivers to go down right around the same time as each other and just be stuck with Tank Dell. But man, oh man. 11 of 30, 191 yards. Literally was an Anthony Richardson last night. Tank Dell, at least we finally got the Tank Dell game, right? 126 yards off the 6 receptions. Can't complain there. But mostly on the Texans, all you want right now is Joe Mixon. I honestly can't believe it. Just an unbelievable year from the Texans in terms of how disappointing they've been. I don't even know where to go from there. Just sad, really. I had such high hopes for C.J. Stroud and Tank Dell. And yeah, of course, we get the Tank Dell game here, but even then, it could have been better, could have been more, and it shouldn't be under these circumstances. It's hard to feel good about it. But that's the kind of Texans-Jets game kind of rundown. Seemed to be some at least interesting things that happened. I know there were also a lot of like the field goal thing that I saw that happened as well. The Texans made a field goal, then decided to accept a penalty to make it a closer field goal instead of just taking the points. Weird stuff going on last night for spooky season. But we're now in November, heading into Week 9. So let's get into it. NFL news. We've got one big storyline really from this week. Well, one that we'll just go ahead and briefly cover this. There is a situation developing around Jameson Williams. Haven't really heard too much about it. The Lions have come out and said they're not really going to speak to media about it, but there may be a potential Jameson Williams suspension looming. Unfortunately, he was in a car with a friend, and there was a gun in the car that was not, or allegedly, not registered to either of the people in the vehicle, or it was registered to the driver, but it was under Jameson Williams' seat. He was arrested. They let him go because he was a Lions player. That's the story. There's an investigation going into that. Hopefully a big nothing burger, but definitely something to monitor. And then the real big story of this week, of course, is the Diontae Johnson to the Ravens trade. What we're excited about here is just Lamar Jackson, really. This is very disappointing for all the pass catchers, really. I mean, it's probably still going to end up being fine for Mark Andrews. We're going to use the word fine there. We're not excited about it. We're losing targets. But really, this just takes away the ceiling from all the pass catchers, but makes Lamar Jackson that much more enticing as a passing quarterback. Bringing him another weapon to kind of help out outside of Zay Flowers and, maybe kind of take away Rashad Bateman, even if he was playing well. You don't need Nelson Aguilar just to kind of help the wide receiver room as a whole. But there's just going to be less targets, right? Like Diontae Johnson, he's not going to get enough to be Diontae Johnson. Zay Flowers is probably not going to get enough to be as good as he is in PPR leagues. The only person I'm not crazy worried about in terms of pass catching is Mark Andrews. He's still going to get touchdowns. You know what I'm saying? He's probably going to get 1 to 3 less targets a game with Deontay Johnson going there. But I don't think he's really taking away his stuff. I'm more so worried about Zay Flowers, maybe the Isaiah Likely kind of targets, and some of the Rashad Bateman will probably be going to Deontay Johnson. I think Mark Andrews will still be fine. This is mostly really, really good news for Lamar Jackson in the pass game, and arguably too, Derrick Henry, as the defenses have to focus on all these wide receivers a bit more, that slightly opens up the game for Derrick Henry, not too much. It was already opened up a ton for him. But, just to make defenses have to be more respectful of the passing game as a whole, should open up the run game a little bit in Baltimore. So there's a slight boom for Derrick Henry as well with this move. In terms of the Panthers, I mean, it's looking like Bryce Young is going to be the quarterback rest of year. He looked fine last week. This car crash situation with Andy Dalton seems to be a bit mysterious. And I at this point, he's had the time to sit back a little bit more and watch Andy Dalton hopefully reset. We'll see how it develops from there. But the big winner, of course, is going to be Xavier Legette. We've seen him this year already score a few touchdowns. He's getting decently fed, not a ton, probably 4 to 6 targets a game, usually here or there. But we've seen some good games from him. We've seen the usage. He's now going to be the wide receiver 1. So that's really, really good news for him. But then there's also some good news there for Jalen Coker, the undrafted free agent who made some noise in the training camp. We saw him last week get a few targets as well, get some good production going. So he's also stepping up in the pass game. And that's good. That's good. Maybe some more Jonathan Mingo. Maybe we could see Adam Thielen return and get involved more. But for the most part, we're excited about Coker, Legette, and Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, really on the Ravens side. And another big story as we head into the injuries here is TJ Hawkinson is expected to make his season debut this week. He's been completely activated, taken off the injury report, yada, yada, yada. TJ Hawkinson is expected to play this week. I believe they're playing the Lions off the top of my head, which is a good return for him. No, the Colts. Sorry. Still a good return for him. With Joe Flacco out there, they're slinging it a bit more in Indy. So should be a fun little game. Cool to see TJ Hawkinson out there. I would go ahead and say it. Fire him up. If you got TJ Hawkinson, you've been waiting this long. Why think about it? Throw him into your lineup this week. Should be fun. He's fully healthy. That's why they've taken so long. I'm sure if they were losing games and really needed the help, he would have been activated a couple weeks ago. But because they were doing fine, they didn't really rush it. But this should mean that he's like more than 100%. Really, more than 100%. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Around the Fur. Sorry. I keep the damn Anthony Richardson was benched. What am I doing? Forgot about that. Not really talked about, but it was just like it happened. It's like trying to forget that happened. Yeah. Joe Flacco is now officially the starter in Indianapolis. It's a weird situation. Shane Steichen has come out and really the whole organization has come out and said that Anthony Richardson is still their guy, but that Joe Flacco gives them the best chance to make the playoffs, which to me is just stupid. It's just stupid. They drafted Anthony Richardson to develop him. They always knew he was a developmental prospect. He sat all last year taking in the game from Gardner Minshew. Sure, didn't do anything. He's had the couple games watching Joe Flacco already this year. So I don't really know what more they want from him in terms of benching him or even what making the playoffs does for the Colts. Why would they really yes, you want to make the playoffs. Sure. Everyone wants to make the playoffs. But in terms of like achieving your goals, like why you're not winning the Super Bowl. In fact, you're probably not going to win the playoff game you make. You might win one, but you're not going to get into the Super Bowl. Colts, be honest with yourself here. That should be the goal. You shouldn't just try to continuously tread the treadmill of mediocrity and continuously just making the playoffs to lose and then ending up with a mid to late pick every year. Like they should just let Anthony Richardson develop, play the damn game, and spend all year. If he still shows no signs of improvement, maybe then you find yourself in a low draft pick and you can ask yourself again, like, man, do we really want Anthony Richardson to be the franchise guy? But now what you're doing is sitting him behind Joe Flacco. And then you're not even going to be able to ask yourself that at the end of this year, which is fine, right? You're going to have to go back to Pittman next year. Yeah, it's just weird stuff. Now, and this is the funny thing too, the whole Pittman injury thing. It was like, oh yeah, I might land on IR, and then you didn't, But that was there's so like it. Honestly, to me, it is an Anthony Richardson problem, but it also just seems like an organizational issue. A lot of things are very dysfunctional in Indianapolis. I don't know. I don't get the thinking at all, really. You can't just try your best to make the playoffs if you're a team like the Colts. Again, you drafted one of the younger quarterbacks that we've seen enter the NFL, one who has played some of the lowest amount of snaps than we've ever seen a quarterback entering the NFL, who was drafted because of pure athleticism, not the quarterback ability. He was always a developmental prospect with really good athleticism that you felt, some of those big ceiling plays could happen and be fine. But now you're taking that away from him. Now you're like, I just don't get it. And you're going to end up with a worse draft pick now. I really don't understand it. As Around the Fur points out, Josh Downs is definitely going to be something. He was still kind of something with Anthony Richardson. He was still a good target of him, but even more so with Joe Flacco. I think he was averaging around 17 points a game or something with Joe Flacco, something around there. And it's good. It is good. No, I mean, yes, I get this. That's what they said, right? That they're just trying to win games, but I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of just trying to win games for the sake of winning games. At the end of the day, this is a long-term plan here. You're trying to build up your team, and Anthony Richardson allegedly is your franchise quarterback that you want to commit to over time. So the best way to do that is to get him the game reps, get him connecting with his team, get him connecting with his players, learn from his mistakes. But maybe they see things differently. I'm sure it'll. I don't know. Can't win the game. That's just where I'm at on it. I think that Anthony Richardson is the answer there, at least in terms of trying to win games. But if you're not long-term trying to win games, you just want to, try to beat the Vikings. Sure, go with Joe Flacco, but there are bigger things in play here in the NFL. Much bigger things. Cool. So let's get into the injuries. We're in Friday now. Normally we do this on Thursday, so we actually have an extra day to see if anyone that was limited on Wednesday ends up becoming full, all that fun stuff. We know some players that have been activated. Always keep getting this stuff, or keep monitoring this stuff over the weekend. But for the most part, we're just going to go team by team here, talk about who's practicing, who's not. On the Cardinals, doesn't look like anyone of note is on or off the injury report. Same here with the Falcons. Everyone seems to be pretty good to go. On Baltimore, though, we do have a big story. And that is Lamar Jackson not practicing Wednesday or Thursday. Back knee. Definitely something to monitor. It's not like this game. I mean, it is the Broncos, so it's a tough matchup, but it's not one that they necessarily have to win. I mean, yes, they want to win this game, obviously, especially after losing last week. But this could be one that you just kind of look back. It's not. I don't know. We'll see. I think that Lamar Jackson generally is going to try to tough this stuff out, but 2 days in a row now he's not practicing. He's probably going to end up being fine. But if you start hearing it again today, not practicing, and then it comes into he'll be a game time decision, I would start to be a little bit worried and just at least start thinking of a backup plan. Maybe go ahead right now as you're listening to this and pick up Lamar Jackson's backup. But for right now, I would probably lean towards him playing, but definitely something to monitor. Get a bit concerned about him not practicing the last 2 days. Zay Flowers is off the injury report from the ankle injury that he picked up, so he's probably good to go. And then Keaton Mitchell, full practice participant, so maybe taken completely off the IR. To that point, Rasheen Ali is still not practicing, so still probably hanging around there. On the Bills, Amari Cooper, he had a wrist injury, limited. So I would just say it looks like we really aren't getting Stephon Diggs, Amari Cooper. Really, we saw last week that it was still pretty much spread around a decent bit. Wrist injury, that's always something to worry about. At least he's limited, at least he's out there practicing, but definitely something to monitor there. And Curtis Samuel, limited as well, so probably fine. Panthers, Xavier Legette, limited toe injury, probably fine. Jonathan Brooks did practice in full. I believe that this is like the week that we get Jonathan Brooks back. At least that's how it's trending towards. So definitely just keep your eye on it there. Try your best. See if there's anyone naive enough to see that, Chuba Hubbard, that they still believe in Chuba Hubbard or something. Maybe I also still maintain that you should sell Jonathan Brooks, to be honest. I think Jonathan Brooks is a fine sell as well. I don't know what this backfield's going to look like. It's not a good offense in general, but it's looking like Jonathan Brooks is back. And also Adam Thielen, he is practicing this week in limited capacity, so we could see him elevated, especially with the Deontay Johnson trade. They have the room for it. Moving on, the Chicago Bears. No one too crazy of note on offense. The Bengals here, still no practice from T. Higgins. So T. Higgins probably going to miss yet another week here. Go ahead and fire up your Jamar Chase with extra confidence. Maybe throw him into your DFS lineups. And then maybe, if you're deeper league, maybe some Jermaine Burton or something. For the most part, though, we know it's just Jamar Chase. Charlie Jones, to that point, also limited. Probably fine since he's limited, but just monitor the Charlie Jones as well if you're in some special team scoring leagues. On to the Browns, Jerome Ford. Looks like he may be able to return this week. He has picked up limited practices Wednesday and Thursday in return of his hamstring injury. Jerome Ford looking good for this week. And David Njoku, he missed practice on Thursday with an ankle injury. Definitely something to monitor. Ankle, never good, especially on Thursday, not practicing, not good. Assuming that also means he missed Wednesday. Monitor David Njoku today if he doesn't play. That is just really, really good news for Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman, and maybe even Jerry Jeudy. But Jameis Winston is slinging that thing regardless of who's out there. So again, if you still haven't tried your best to get some Browns weapons, try to do it. With David Njoku not practicing, there may be even more volume heading that way. Let's see. In Dallas, no one too crazy of note on offense. Same in Denver. Same in Detroit. For the Packers, Josh Jacobs did miss Wednesday, I believe, but was able to practice in a limited capacity on Thursday. This is an ankle injury. Josh Jacobs probably will be fine, but definitely monitor that. And Marshawn Lloyd's still not practicing. Crazy enough, he's still not out there. So if Josh Jacobs doesn't go, he is going to go. It looks like he's going to go. He should be fine. But still, maybe if Emmanuel Wilson is hanging around, you could pick him back up or try to make a move for him or something if you have Josh Jacobs. But he should be fine. He's limited, good to go. He's one of those players that just plays through these things. Jordan Love, same thing, limited. Should be good to go. I don't really think we're going to be seeing Malik Willis this week. Texans played last night. Nothing here on the Colts in Jacksonville. Everyone's limited. A lot of injuries were picked up this week. But Brian Thomas Jr., limited. Gabe Davis, limited. Tank Bigsby, limited. Travis Etienne, limited. Generally, when we see these limited practices, players are able to return that week. My guess would be that we still don't see Brian Thomas Jr. based off the early reports, but they were never really truly corroborated with him picking up a limited practice. We might actually see him, which could be crazy. I think Gabe Davis would probably play through his shoulder. Chest injuries for Brian Thomas, that's always just a really iffy one. I would like, if I were a coach, at least to see a little bit more than just a limited practice and feel confident in that. But he is out there. We'll see. Definitely monitored all of those, really, but especially Brian Thomas Jr. The backfield as well. It looks like we could have just a split backfield between Tank Bigsby, Travis Etienne, Dearness Johnson, with 2/3 of those players being just less than 100%. But everyone is limited this week that we are worried about. Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas, Tank Bigsby, Travis Etienne. Hopefully, right, they're all able to get out there. That would be perfect, even if they are less than 100%. Monitor those guys. In Kansas City, Kareem Hunt's limited, so he's probably going to be good to go, but he would be playing through a quad injury, so just something to note. And Isaiah Pacheco still not able to practice, but Andy Reid has noted that he is doing fantastic. Juju Smith-Schuster still not practicing as well, so it looks like we're still going to be yet another week without Juju. Las Vegas, man. Zamir White just not practicing. What a disappointing pick. Michael Mayer still out with his personal issues, but Antonio Pierce has said that he's getting close to a return. So that could be a fun little stash. I think that Michael Mayer is a very interesting name to watch at the trade deadline. I'm going to be honest with you. So if Michael Mayer is out there, I could see him being traded. I really, really could. With these personal issues, a lot of times you just need to see kind of a reset of scenery. So I wouldn't be surprised if he is at least a name that we start hearing about like right before the trade deadline. With him getting close to a return, at least per reports, that suggests that, hey, maybe his personal issues are getting better and they're trying to trade him. So we'll see. But I would definitely monitor the Michael Mayer situation. He's been dropped in a lot of leagues, but he still was one of the better tight end prospects we've seen before heading into last year. So I think he would be a fun little stash if you have the room for him, just in case. And then if nothing happens to the trade deadline, throw him right back down there. Moving on to the Chargers. DJ Chark practiced fully, so we may actually see a DJ Chark return. Brendan Rice not practicing, although that really hasn't mattered. Will Dissly, he is limited, so he's looking good to go. And that should do it. Definitely monitor the DJ Chark. That could be really cool. Again, I'm kind of excited about that one. We've talked about it a few times this season on the Waiver Wire show. He just operates in a part of the field that the Chargers don't really utilize or have someone to utilize. I think that they would begin to utilize that with DJ Chark there. He's just one of those players that finds a way. And so I do kind of like him in some deeper leagues, his potential. On the Rams, Puka Nacua didn't go to the media portion after yesterday's practice because of a knee injury, but it is considered to be a minor one. He should be fine. His status for this Sunday's game is undetermined. It is kind of concerning that we keep seeing just injuries pop up for Puka Nacua at practice. So yeah, but it's supposedly not a big one. So it's probably fine for Puka Nacua, but definitely something to monitor. That's never anything you want to hear, especially from a knee injury at practice. Jordan Whittington, however, was able to get a limited practice this week from his shoulder injury. Looks like he'd probably be able to return this week. Would DJ Chark help or hurt Ladd? I think help. Again, he just kind of operates in a different area of the field, so I think that would just help in general. This is probably true. It was the same knee. Okay, so that's never good. They say it isn't considered a major one, but I'm sure that we'll have a little bit more news on it today. You're right. Actually, you're so right. Them saying it's minor is concerning. We're just gonna let it play out. But if Jordan Whittington was hastily dropped in any of our leagues, again, we talked about it on the Waiver Wire show this week. He's the guy you want. He's the wide receiver you want in Los Angeles if you're not trying to get Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua. So if he was hastily cut, get him for sure in regards to the Puka Nacua injury. Hopefully Nacua is good to go, though. In Miami, Tyreek Hill limited. He'll be fine. Minnesota, again, TJ Hawkinson returning this week completely off the injury report. In New England, Jalen Polk practiced fully, so he should be good to go. Tyquan Thornton limited, so he's probably fine. Drake May limited, so just monitor his practice today. It's very possible he does get off the concussion protocol, which is what we want to happen. We need Drake May out there. He gets fantasy points. Antonio Gibson limited with his toe injury, so he's probably good to go as well. In New Orleans, Kendra Miller not practicing with his hamstring injury. I guess it's just not going to happen for Kendra. Jamal Williams limited with his groin injury, probably fine. Alvin Kamara limited with a hand rib injury, probably fine. Derek Carr limited. There are reports that Derek Carr may be able to return this week. That would be good news for New Orleans. Spencer Rattler's just not it. Derek Carr, also not necessarily it, but better than Spencer Rattler, should help this offense a lot. That'd be huge news for Alvin Kamara, who has been very much struggling the last few weeks, at least in terms of the ceiling. With Derek Carr back, we could see him get a lot more pass catching work, which is awesome news. So monitor that. Hopefully we get some Derek Carr action this week. In New York, I believe Tyrone Tracy, limited. Looking like he'll be able to get off the concussion protocol as well. I saw Theo tweet out that they were able to release his x-rays, and there was a dog in there, so he's probably good to go. And that'll do it in New York. The other New York, they played last night. Philadelphia, Dallas Goedert still not practicing with his hamstring injury, so we should not expect him to play. Look for more A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Nothing crazy in Pittsburgh. San Francisco. They're on bye, so I guess it doesn't really matter. Seattle, still no practicing for DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf is still not practicing with his knee injury. We'll talk about that a little bit more. We're firing up some Jackson Smith and Jigba this week. Of course, fire up your Tyler Lockett. I know that the Seahawks didn't look as good without DK Metcalf, but still, we like the matchup a decent bit. And yeah, no DK Metcalf. It's looking like this week, though. Start to find yourself another option. Noah Fant is also not practicing, which is even more good news for JSN in that part of the field. Tampa, Sterling Shepard not practicing. That is not good news. Looks like Sterling Shepard would probably be out this week. Bucky Irving, also not looking like he'll be practicing. He has not yet. They do expect him to return. He had a toe injury, and apparently he's been kind of dealing with that, or will be dealing with that rest of season. So Bucky Irving, and this week, definitely look for some Rachaad White. Maybe try to buy Rachaad White even. Tyler Boyd out this week. It looks like he has not practiced. He might be fine. You know, it's a shoulder injuries, and he is a veteran. So it's very possible that they just kind of don't have him practice this week. So monitor Tyler Boyd. Will Levis limited, but he was kind of benched this week. So kind of see if there's any developments on that. We might see Mason. And neither is Tony Pollard. So that could be some crazy stuff in the Tennessee backfield. Who even is the third string? Why did I not know that off the top of my head right now? But yeah, no practicing for Tyjae Spears or Tony Pollard. Foot injury for Pollard, hamstring for Spears. Julius Chestnut, maybe a fun little pickup right now. Get some Chestnut on your roster. And then in Washington, Brian Robinson limited, Jaden Daniels limited, Olamide Zaccheaus limited. Everyone should be fine. Yeah, that's it for the injuries. Go ahead and do that. As we see Trey Palmer's season, I don't mind. I don't mind it. I like Trey Palmer. We've talked about him before. I mean, I would think that the Sterling Shepard injury helps Jalen McMillan a little bit more. Trey Palmer is still more of kind of the Mike Evans replacement, at least in spirit, of course, not in skill. Whereas Jalen McMillan kind of plays everywhere. So I think he kind of gets a bigger benefit from a Sterling Shepard injury. But still, both of them get a little bit of a bonus. Mostly it's Cade Otton season, right? It's mostly just Cade Otton season in that regard. So cool. That should do it for the injuries and the news updates. Before we get into my start sits, let's just hear a little bit about the DFS Dominator.
Hey, I know DFS may have peaked, but there are still hundreds of thousands of people to play and millions of dollars up for grabs every week. So let's put our hoodie on and let's talk about Player Profiler's DFS Dominator. It has a cash game optimizer that leverages the projections from Billy and Theo and Bradley and Evan and that Player Profiler AI engine to create cash game lineups that certainly have a high floor, but also give you that ceiling. Now, you've probably heard about the most powerful tool of all, our Lineup Genius. We know winning GPPs requires a completely different approach, which is why our Lineup Genius takes you through the process of selecting the quarterbacks in the juiciest matchups. Then it highlights the stacks and runbacks that are available, lets you pick the chalk level, lets you pick the level of correlation with a number of other proprietary settings available to you. Click a button and it generates hundreds of lineups to be imported into FanDuel and DraftKings. And it's just $45 a year, not a week, a year. So for that reason alone, if you play DFS, you'd be an idiot not to buy the DFS Dominator.
DFS Dominator tool is epic, as well as the rest of the Player Profiler tools. We are running a promo. This week only to celebrate spooky season. I know Halloween was yesterday, but if you use promo code BOO at checkout for the all-in package, you will get $69 off, getting the entire all-in package for only $66 in celebration of Halloween. So use the promo code BOO for the all-in package at Player Profiler. That'll get you the DFS Dominator that Matt just talked about, but also the Dynasty Deluxe package, the player rankings, the data analysis, all of that fun stuff for only $66. It's honestly, genuinely a steal. I love these tools. Now, we've got starts and sits by position. We'll start at quarterback. The highest point total of the board is the Falcons taking on the Cowboys, and we are firing up Kirk Cousins as a result. They're expecting 51.5 points in this game, and the Dallas Cowboys defense has just been abysmal. They've allowed the second most points in general and the fifth most yards in general as well. The passing defense, they're outside of the top 15 in passing yards allowed, passing touchdowns allowed. and interceptions. And rushing yards as well. They're like the worst rushing defense in the league right now. So really, it's just a defense that should get shredded. We want Kirk Cousins this week. The way he's playing right now, off of 4 touchdowns, all the pass catchers looking good. Should be a fun little matchup. The Cowboys also starting to show some signs of life as well, with them finally just feeding the ball to CeeDee Lamb, which is, I don't know why it took them so long. It always takes them so long. But should be a fun game. Vegas is expecting such. So we're going to be firing up Kirk Cousins, and we will be mentoring one more Falcon later in the show. In terms of the quarterback that we are sitting, it's going to be Jay Herbo. Justin Herbert is taking on the Browns, and I just don't trust it. Not only does Vegas feel against it with the second lowest point total on the board at 42.5 points, the Cleveland defense is just awesome, especially when Deshaun Watson is gone. The defense just kind of shoulders the team and really starts to get fired up a little bit more. But even before that, the Cleveland Browns defense was killing it against the pass. They are 12th in pass yards allowed, touchdowns allowed in the pass game. And Justin Herbert, up until last week, just hasn't even been good. He only has one game over 15 points, and that was literally last week. And even then, last week, his volume wasn't that high, only 32 pass attempts. It was really just because he had 49 rush yards, which is something we hadn't seen in a long time. And I don't think something that we should consistently rely on going forward as well. With it being a tough matchup, I wouldn't be firing up Justin Herbert in this game. Not a lot of points expected to be scored either. I'm sure that there's a better option out there. Tough matchup. Not a lot of points expected to be scored. Not a high pass volume offense. No reason really to fire up Jay Herbo. At the running back position, we are starting Chase Brown. The Bengals are taking on the Raiders and favored by 7 points, so that the game script should, of course, favor the run game. But even then, the Raiders have not been very good against the run. They're outside of the top 10 in rushing yards and rushing touchdowns allowed. And Chase Brown in general has just really started to show some signs of life over the last few weeks. Since week 4, he's had at least 12 touches in every single game, 23 points, 16 points, 14 points, 7 points, 11 points, and just, getting the ball more than Zach Moss, who over the last 4 weeks has only had one game with 10 or more touches. So Chase Brown has kind of become the 1A in Cincinnati. Should be a game in which the Bengals are ahead, and which should allow Chase Brown to be really good. I'm expecting a pretty decent Chase Brown game in this one, especially, again, there was no T. Higgins expected this week, so maybe a couple more passes can go his way as well. But as he's the 1A, as they're favored against the Raiders, I think this should be a fun one for Chase Brown. And we will be sitting Travis Etienne. This is maybe a cop-out, as, it's always hard to trust a running back coming off an injury, especially in one that is probably coming back to a committee now since Tank Bigsby's been playing so well. But the Eagles' rush defense is also just incredible. They rank 7th in general in points allowed and yards allowed, but against the run, they are 8th in yards allowed and 5th in rushing touchdowns allowed. They have been stingy against the run. Travis Etienne will not only be less than 100%, but also in a crowded backfield. In a game script that should not favor the run, the Eagles are favored by 7.5 points, and I do not blame Vegas for that one. Maybe he'll get some pass work, but maybe not as well. We don't really know. We haven't seen it as much in his career, especially coming off an injury. I wouldn't really bet on it this week. I'm sure that there are some better options out there. At wide receiver, we already mentioned this one. We already did, but we're going to go into detail now. We're firing up Jackson Smith-Njigba. We're calling it now. The JSN week is here. They are taking on the Rams, and you know me, I'm a sucker for divisional games. It is expected to be a 1-point game, right? The Rams favored by 1, and Vegas has it at a 48-point total, which is pretty high. With DK Metcalf not practicing, it's looking like he will be out again, and Jackson Smith-Njigba should be the dude. He has not really had the touchdowns. He only has 1 touchdown so far this year, but he's getting the targets. And the Rams have been shredded in terms of passing touchdowns allowed. They're 6th in touchdowns allowed, or 26th in passing touchdowns allowed, so they've allowed the 6th most passing touchdowns. And they found themselves in the bottom half of passing yards allowed as well. Versus wide receivers, they're pretty average, but still Jackson Smith-Njigba with no DK Metcalf should be a lock for at least 8 targets in this game. I think I'm calling the touchdown as well. We're getting a Jackson Smith-Njigba week in the divisional matchup against the Rams. The wide receiver we are sitting is Zay Flowers. And really, this is a Deontay Johnson take, but we want to get cute with it too and say we're going to sit Zay Flowers as well. The Ravens are taking on the Broncos, which are a very, very good defense. They are third in points allowed and yards allowed. And against the pass, they are fourth in passing yards allowed, seventh in passing touchdowns allowed, and have had the 10th most interceptions across the league. Even against the run, they're very good as well. They're just a very, very, very good defense. Lamar Jackson is less than 100%, and with Deontay Johnson in town, there's just too many mouths to feed. You could probably still go Zay Flowers for his floor in like a full PPR league that's a little bit deeper, but I think that this is the week to probably sit him in a tough matchup, less than 100% Lamar, and potentially getting Deontay Johnson involved a bit. This is a bold one. I wanted to throw at least one bold one in here. We can't get too, I feel like we've been too chalky so far. So getting a little too crazy here maybe, but with the arrival of Deontay Johnson in a tough matchup against the Broncos, I think we can be sitting Mr. Zay Flowers. Now, of course, unless you're like, we'll talk about this later, Mac. We do have one of these. We do have a Broncos player. At tight end, this is simple. This is like, I'm actually happy. Normally, I hate doing the tight end portion of this, but Cade Otton. Cade Otton versus the Chiefs. That's simple. Of course, we're firing up Cade Otton. He's coming off a game where he had 9 receptions and 2 touchdowns. And the Chiefs, despite having the bye week, have given up some of the most receiving yards to the tight end position. They've given up 566 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns to the tight end position so far this year, which is almost as much as the Ravens have, who's given up the most, who've played one more game. The Chiefs have been shredded by the tight end position, and with Sterling Shepard injured, looks like Cade Otton should be even more involved, which is just incredible news. Cade Otton seems to be the alpha in Tampa. Don't question it at all. You've got to lock down Cade Otton into your lineup this week. And sit Tucker Kraft. Again, we talked about selling him on yesterday's show. The Packers are taking on the Lions, and yes, but the Lions have actually been very, very good against tight ends. Just like I said with the Chiefs, the Lions, despite having the bye week, really because of the bye week, but even then it makes sense. They've only allowed 210 yards and 1 touchdown to the tight end position this season. That is the second least in the league. So they are just crushing it against tight ends. They really, really are. And Tucker Kraft hasn't had more than 4 targets over the last 3 weeks. That's with all the wide receivers healthy. He's just been less and less involved. Sure, he maybe could get a touchdown, but I wouldn't bet on it. We're sitting Tucker Kraft. And in fact, I would say sell him. Sell him. Ooh, 5 anytime touchdown scores before we get into the flex. Derrick Henry, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tyler Algier, Jaden Reed, I guess Chase Brown, if we're just going to go off my start sits. There you go. Now, into the flex plays. I've got 4 for you this week, and these are all just kind of general. There's no like anything too crazy here. Vegas, game script, opportunity, the usual. Just some flex plays here that I think are good to bet on. Wan'Dale Robinson taking on the Commanders. Commanders, a pretty soft pass defense. Giants, of course, Wan'Dale Robinson is catching a ton of balls every single week because he's getting targeted at a crazy amount every single week in full PPR leagues. We're, of course, firing up Wan'Dale against the Commanders. I was asked, hey, which Bronco wide receiver would you play? Ravens are pretty questionable against the pass. Well, Troy Franklin. Cortland Sutton should, have a decent game as well. But Troy Franklin, to me, seems like the one. Again, you guys know I believe in the guy. And given a little bit of a deeper flex play would be Troy Franklin to me. In a deeper league, if you could pick him up and play him, I wouldn't mind it. I could see the Broncos maybe playing a little bit of catch up and using him a little bit more. We saw a couple weeks ago, I think it was a 5 or 6 targeter. We saw the touchdown a few weeks before that. I think Troy Franklin is finally involved in this offense, so we'll be going with that. Roma Dunze. I said Troy Franklin. Did I say Tim Patrick? Troy Franklin. Sorry. I was talking Troy Franklin the whole time. The rookie. Anyway, Roma Dunze. versus the Cardinals. Rome Odunze versus the Cardinals again. Big believer of Rome Odunze on the Chicago offense. We saw him last week lead the Bears in receiving coming out of the bye. That was kind of an expectation we had that Rome Odunze may become the bigger part heading out of the bye week. Again, I just don't think that they would use that draft capital on him if they don't want him to be a huge part of the offense. This is an opportunity against the soft Cardinals defense for him to get more involved and kind of establish himself, especially going up against Marvin Harrison Jr. on the other side. Rome Odunze. I think is a fun little flex play versus the Cardinals this week. And then Tyler Algier. Again, this is the highest point total of the week, or maybe second highest at 51.5. But either way, that's a high one. We love 51.5 points. Tyler Algier has been consistently getting involved, and we will be expecting probably a touchdown from him this week, getting down on the goal line, getting utilized. Good little Tyler Algier game against the Cowboys. Fire him up in your flex. And that'll do it for the start sits. Whew. Game picks. Game picks. What a long show. Here we go. Going over to our Yahoo Pick'em League. Should have done it yesterday, considering I missed the Thursday game, but I would have got it wrong anyway, so oh well. That's what I get for believing in the Texans. It's just what I get. Cool. All right, Falcons, Cowboys in Atlanta. Falcons favored by 2.5. We're giving it to them. We are giving it to them. Let's go, Falcons. Younghoe Koo game winner. Who says no? Who says no? Bills taking on Miami, favored by 6. I think the Dolphins cover. I think the Dolphins can definitely cover. I don't think it looks like Vegas is not really adjusted to Tua's return yet. 6 points seems pretty high. I know the Bills are awesome, but let's be honest here. I think Miami could cover. Still probably go with the Bills win. But yeah. Bengals, Raiders. Bengals favored by 7 at home. I'm going to say that I think the Raiders can cover. I mean, we're still going to give it to the Bengals. But you know me. I like Gardner Minshew. And he generally keeps games kind of close. No T. Higgins. The Bengals have been very hit or miss. I love the Bengals. I think they're awesome, and I think they win this game. But I think that Vegas can cover that 7. That's a pretty decent spread there. If it was 6.5, I might give it to Cincinnati, but right at 7 feels a little tough. Chargers heading to Cleveland, favored by 2. No, the Browns win this game. What are we talking? Why are the Browns not? They just beat the Ravens. Jameis Winston just played great. Why is Vegas still not catching up on the Browns? That's an easy one. At home. 2, give it to the Browns. Titans hosting the Patriots, favored by 3.5. No, we're giving it to the Patriots. Just don't trust that Titans team. They're really, really bad. Patriots are fine, at least. I know they're bad, but like they're just a little bit. They can do it, right? Like they're a football team, whereas I don't even know what the Titans are. I really don't. I have no idea what I'm watching in Tennessee. Commanders heading to New York, favored by 3.5. Yeah. Jaden Daniels is too good. The Giants are too bad. Commanders should easily win by more than 3.5. Saints heading to Carolina, favored by 7. I think Carolina could cover at home. These are some big spreads this week, Vegas. What are y'all doing? I don't know. I mean, it's not like the Saints have been great. I know we have Derek Carr coming back, but I don't know. I think the Panthers could cover this one at home. I mean, this is like the NFC South, especially the Saints games. These divisional matchups generally always end right around 20 points. Right around 20 points, like for the winner. So to win by 7, I don't know. I think that's a bit too high for me. I think Carolina can cover that at home. Baltimore heading to Denver, 9.5. What is this? No, I think Denver can cover. But the Ravens still probably win this. But I mean, the Broncos are playing really well. Bo Nix just got, man, this is crazy. Bo Nix just got Rookie of the Month. They're playing well. The Broncos, 9.5. They just lost to the Browns. Denver covers. I mean, we'll still give it to the Ravens, but that's crazy. Eagles hosting the Jaguars, favored by 7.5. I will get this one. This one's tough to me, but I'll give it to them just because of how banged up the Well, actually, no. Jaguars can cover this one as well. They are banged up, but Evan Ingram's still there. I think they could still get it going. Man. Yeah. I think Jaguars could cover. I think that they'll be fine. And it looks like everyone will be playing, even if they're less than 100% as of now. So I think they could cover that 7.5. Cardinals favored by 1, hosting the Bears. We'll go the Bears upset. We'll go with the Bears upset. Caleb Williams fired up after the Hail Mary loss to Jaden Daniels. Arizona defense kind of suspect. Yeah, we'll go with the Chicago upset. Detroit heading to Green Bay, favored by 3.5. We'll give it to the Packers at home, actually. I love the Lions, but let's face it, no J-Mo, no Aiden Hutchinson. Packers playing well. I'm assuming that this game, that Vegas maybe thinks that Malik Willis is starting, but it looks like Jordan Love will be. So we'll give it to the Bears, or to the Packers. Sorry, I saw the Bears comment. Rams heading to Seattle, favored by 1.5. We're going to give it to the Seahawks. Weird stuff going on in LA. I think JSN has a good week. I think the Seahawks have a good week. At home, we're going with the Seahawks. Vikings hosting the Colts, favored by 5.5. Yeah, we'll give it to them. Even with Joe Flacco, I think the Vikings can win this one by a touchdown or more. Especially with the TJ Hawkinson return. This Vikings offense should be feeling good this week. Chiefs hosting the Bucks, favored by 9? No. Tampa covers. Kansas City has not been winning by 9. Maybe they have. I don't know. But they're all too close. They're not scoring a lot of points. The offense is anemic. The Buccaneers are fine, even without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Vegas has not adjusted a lot this week. That's kind of crazy. So we're going with the Bucks, at least to cover. Took some hot takes there. I don't know. I see a lot of pushback on the Browns beating the Chargers. That's just what they do. Isn't that the year that the Browns won 1 game was over the Chargers? No, yes. We called this one. Sam Howell will start at some point. Geno Smith is killing it, but they're not worried about that. They do want to kind of figure out the future. You know what I'm saying? I could see that they traded for Sam Howell for a reason. They could pull the plug and just see what he has. I think it would probably be end-to-end season, not quite yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Definitely have been recommending putting him on your Superflex rosters. Drop Sterling for Coker. I like that. Would you trade Amon-Ra for A.J. Brown? Give me Amon-Ra. Easy, give me Amon-Ra. I mean, if you get A.J. Brown plus, maybe, but give me Amon-Ra. I did not see the Roquan Halloween costume. That's funny. Waddle or Tillman? That's hilarious. I mean, I think Waddle. Now, I think this is a very valid question. I'm leaning Waddle because of the game. Bills, Dolphins, that should be a little bit of a shootout. The Dolphins did trend forward in the passing game with Tua back last week. I would lean Waddle here. Tillman getting a ton of work. He is, yes. But we're leaning into the Bills matchup because of the game script, potential points on the board, all that fun stuff. The Chargers-Browns game, one of the lower point totals. Tillman probably still has a decent game, but so should Waddle. I think that Waddle has a little bit of a higher ceiling this week. San Francisco running back rest of season. It's Isaac Guerendo. I mean, Christian McCaffrey really is who you want, but Isaac Guerendo, you also want. I mean, really you want all three. It seems unclear, but Isaac Guerendo is the one with the juice. He should be good for the next couple weeks. We like him a lot. Start. Would I rather have Rashad or Tyrone Tracy? I think Rashad White, this toe injury for Bucky Irving, I think could linger or is expected to linger. No, it's Tyrone Tracy. What am I talking about? Tyrone Tracy's a dog. He's got crazy athleticism. Not really sharing the backfield as much anymore. We're going with Tracy, actually. What am I doing? Start 2 and a flex. Waddle. Downs. Worthy. Waddle, Downs, Worthy. Hurts or Jaden Daniels. I think Jaden Daniels. Starter sit, Kareem Hunt, Tyler Algier. Give me Algier. All right. Let's see. Sit one. Drake London, Josh Downs, Kenneth Walker, James Cook. Why? Why do I have to sit one of these? I can't. I'm sorry. I'm not telling you to sit any one of those players. I'm moving on. I ain't doing that. Are we still victory lapping the JMO pick? Less so, but yes. Less so, but yes. Judy is playable if David Njoku is out, I would say. Cool. This is not true. They play better with JMO. You saw those playoff games. All right, and the beginning of the season. All right, everyone. You all have a wonderful... Dang it. The mirror always gets me. You all have a great day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. And make sure you tune in on Monday for some reactions to Week 9. Have a fantastic Friday. A wonderful weekend. And good luck in Week 9. Have a good one. Peace.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.